How it looks for you.
Is your
The-
camera
Yeah.
your camera rolling?
Hey everyone, I'm Ron De Jesus, Field Chief Privacy Officer at Transcend. The following is a conversation with Idriss Kechida, OpenAI's first ever Global Data Protection Officer. As the former CPO at Match Group, leading privacy at the world's largest dating brands like Tinder and Hinge, Idriss is now helping to shape privacy strategy at arguably the world's most impactful AI company, making sure that innovation is responsible, thoughtful, and genuinely privacy protective. I'm excited for you to hear his take on privacy rights in the age of AI, what the next generation of privacy pros needs to bring to the table, and why he's optimistic about where AI is headed today. This is Transcend Field Trips. Idriss, thank you so much for joining me in Dublin today. I think it's so cool that we're also right next to St. Stephen's Green.
Yes. Yeah, it's a super cool central location. We're very close to here. We're super fortunate ourselves.
And I know you're from Paris originally, but how long have you been in Dublin now?
I've been in Dublin for 7 years now, so I'm proper, I have a cardigan. I'm a proper Irish person.
Is that what denotes what
I don't know. That's what I like to think.
I actually have to grab one. I think they're called Grand Isle sweaters or something, right?
There's a bunch. If you go out there, there's so many of them.
I'm definitely doing the Dublin thing. I've had multiple Guinnesses. I think I've tried to cut the G a few times as well, but it's been really great being in Dublin. And honestly, thank you so much for inviting me and the Transcend team to your first ever privacy AI hackathon yesterday. That was, I think, a really great success.
Yeah, it was really great. It's to my knowledge, it's the first AI privacy hackathon in Europe. I don't think I've heard any other.
Yeah.
I think it was great. Seeing all of the community. We purposefully wanted to do it in Dublin because the ecosystem is so great. The community really here is so great, and I wasn't surprised in that way. But yes, it's been I think it's been a success. It's one of many, hopefully. But I really loved it.
Yeah. Well, as my first hackathon, I thought it was fantastic.
Great.
I'm glad my team won Privacy by Design concept. But Idriss, I'm actually super excited for this conversation only because I think we've both seen each other kind of grow in our own careers. We were co-workers at Match Group. You were the CPO there. We were leading privacy for brands like Tinder and Hinge. So I really wanted to just start with understanding what drew you to OpenAI. First, again, leading privacy at a really incredible company like Match. What kind of brought you into the AI space?
So it's probably not going to be surprising, right? I think I've always loved, privacy is just already kind of the field I was specializing in, right? I love kind of that, messy middle of tech and law and human behavior. And that's really what privacy is. And when DALL-E launched, it's actually the first time I created an OpenAI account was a bit more than 3 years ago when they launched DALL-E, so the first image generation.
Yeah. Where the arms were this way. And
it wasn't. I was gonna say it wasn't good. It wasn't good, but it was so new, and you could see already, right, what it could become, and that's why I created my account. And then a few months later, I think at the time, so 3 years ago now, it was the anniversary. A few days ago, ChatGPT launched, and it just, I think, caught kind of my imagination and everyone else's. And I'm sure people, who were in the know, in that industry, in San Francisco and other places, they knew probably that this is where the tech was. I didn't. And I think many people around the world didn't. And when I saw this and me loving that kind of messy kind of middle of tech and law and human behavior, I was like, oh my God, can you think about all of those privacy questions that are being asked in terms of guardrails, in terms of opportunities as well to seize on the privacy side. I just wanted to be there in the middle of this and, in the room, when we create all of those new kind of policies. And what does that even mean, for 100%. Privacy?
Now being at OpenAI, what's changed between, again, being at an AI company and maybe a more traditional company where you're leading privacy?
I think there are things that change and things that don't. It's funny. I think it's not privacy, but at the frontier of tech. And so what that means in practice is things that don't change is privacy is principle-based, right?
Sure.
And so it's all the same things, right? It's like do privacy by design. It's data minimization. It's don't keep data for too long. Only use the data that you actually need. Obtain people consent if you need to. Give them controls.
Right.
About what they can do with their data. All of this is still very much the same. Like I think in practice. However, because it's really at the frontier, like you're talking about completely new technology. There's no charted, path yet. That's why I joined. I really wanted to. That's even like in a way why I did what I did in the past as well. Just kind of creating the whole privacy function. At Match was the same. It's being able to create something new. And I think when you're doing AI, what's super interesting is it keeps. At least that's my experience. Internally, everyone is very humble because it's all new.
Yeah.
No one knows, right? New products are being created. No one has ever thought about the privacy impacts of those, And so when researchers come to us and they have ideas, about new things that they could be doing, and you start discussing all of the privacy kind of, perspectives that this could bring and privacy, issues and privacy opportunities and so forth.
Yeah.
It's the first time, everyone is thinking about those typically. And so there's a lot of like, well, like maybe that's a stupid question, but, and on all sides, it's me telling that to researchers,
Right.
like researchers telling that to us. It's really just this all the time. And I think it's great, like that everyone is kept very humble, by doing this in practice.
That's great. And I actually really like that you established that we have the GDPR, we have these data protection frameworks that exist that apply to these new technologies already. And like we were doing at Match Group, we actually back in 2018 when the GDPR came into effect and when I joined Tinder, and you were at the helm of privacy there, I had a bit of a rude awakening because it was my first time working with engineers. So speaking their language and understanding their unique perspectives, I'm sure working with researchers that are in the weeds when it comes to this incredible new technology is really exciting.
Yeah, it's super exciting, and it is a different. So I wasn't used to working with researchers either. Like before joining OpenAI, I was very used to working with marketing people and product people and engineers, right? Like developers, like that I've been doing for years and years. But researchers are really a different bunch. I think they're thinking about things differently, like much more kind of like groundbreaking, but really grassroots research essentially. And it's really funny to see how engaged these people are, because in a way, it's also people who come from an academic background and and so you have people who are actually just intuitively as well really care deeply about safety, about privacy, because they're not necessarily business people who are trying to just create products.
Right.
They're really there to create technology, and they're thinking about what that means really in their context. So it is really interesting discussion where you can really go back and have like fundamental discussions with them more than you would with typical kind of engineers, I guess, in practice.
Right. I love the fact that researchers that you're working with it seems to they're driven by innovation and developing new products versus typical businesses that want to monetize right away. I wanted to move into Idriss, the fact that, again, OpenAI is arguably the world's most innovative company, at least from my perspective. How does it feel to, I wouldn't say carry the burden, but to actually be at the forefront of privacy at a company that's, just so important and impactful to the entire population, I'd say?
It's, we have technology that is definitely powerful, and that I think it's only the tip of the iceberg at this point. So I do kind of very much believe personally that, when you bring intelligence, because that's really what it is, it's trying to bring more intelligence, into every kind of processes and making it available for like very cheap, to everyone, essentially. That's very powerful. And at a risk of being a super like old school comic books nerd, it's like great power comes great responsibility in practice.
Right, I love
and
that.
So that's really where I agree that like it is a heavy burden to carry in a way, and I think that's also what people expect from us, right? I think people would worry if we weren't taking this super seriously in practice. But I have a team, who does this with me. I have, we have a whole company who's really focused essentially on those things, who understands that this is, privacy in practice and safety and a few other considerations like this are really core, to what we do. And so it is helpful, candidly. And since I've joined, like it is because it's a company that's a research lab, you have a lot of researchers that, came here for the mission, right? It's not just
Right.
OpenAI is a product company, is a really young company, but OpenAI as a research lab is a much older company, and people came here for the mission. The mission is to make AGI benefit everyone, and if you want artificial general intelligence to benefit everyone, you can't bulldoze your way, right? Like in terms of privacy, your way there, essentially. One thing I would mention is, because like that's something that sometimes I feel is a little bit lost, is when I'm thinking of the responsibility we have, there's the notion of obviously privacy safeguards, and that's the world in which I live, right? That's what I do.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of like seizing the opportunities, and you were here like yesterday, at the hackathon, and that's what it's about. It's about also AI enhancing a lot of the privacy. I'm super bullish on this personally, and I think when I think about the burden that we carry, I think both about minimizing privacy risk, and that's what I do like day to day. That's what many people do day to day. But it's also maximizing, in a way, data value, in the sense that we have this data and we need to also make it available, or at least use it for it to really be, creating great intelligence for everyone as well. And so seizing that opportunity and making privacy better, creating new privacy tools, is also part of, what we want to convey and bring out to the world.
And we clearly saw that yesterday, Idriss, at the hackathon. So many great ideas on how to use AI for the good to actually be privacy protective, whether it's agents operationalizing privacy rights or making forms that are kind of notifying you in advance of privacy risk. We saw that in action. So
yeah, like I really firmly believe that, while we live in that world always day to day, we're thinking a lot about safeguards and guardrails, right? That's what we do. And I think that's critical. That's still the core of what we do. But really, tomorrow, I absolutely see a world, and that's why we're doing this hackathon, and that's what we're working also internally on, which is, helping companies better manage data, through AI. It's helping people better manage their privacy at scale, right? And exercising their rights, at scale through agents and some other, AI tools. And it's even about, and I was chatting with also a few people at the Data Protection Commission yesterday, where I do also see that as being used by, the Data Protection Commission and other regulators to be able to oversee and review at scale, right? Their regulated firms, like in practice. All of this eventually will be used by all of these actors, to also enhance privacy in addition to that guardrails discussion.
Idriss, coming from a Fortune 500 company and now transitioning into a company that's primarily research driven, what was your most significant personal shift, or whether it's personal or professional, that kind of impacted you?
I think personally, there's a lot about even just using the tools. They make you much more effective. They're super helpful, and I've been doing a lot of this. And also, I think it's funny because obviously, we both worked in that dating industry, and the idea of stigma, of using tools was big at the time and still is. And I think for AI, it's funny because there was that discussion 2 years ago, are you using AI for your job, that sort of thing. And I think people were starting to think about, well, like, should I use it? And I think it went so fast because people found it so helpful in practice. And I think that discussion doesn't even exist anymore, right? Like using AI for your job feels like I want to do more. Like if anything, I need to find
using it,
right? Like I need to find more use cases, where I can kind of use it to go faster and to be more productive. And so I think that discussion kind of came and went essentially. And so that also applied to me, very much so. When I joined, I started to use it much more, and so that was definitely a thing.
Idriss, that's a really good point and a great segue into my next question, which is this sense of operationalizing privacy rights in the age of AI. When we think about, the core rights of data deletion or the core principles of data minimization, how do we truly operationalize that with AI technology?
So I think the principles are the same, and that's what we were kind of discussing. When you have this one principle that applies to, the bakery next door, and a frontier AI lab, right? Like us. Obviously, that takes people to figure out what does that mean, right, for this activity. But I do personally feel minimization is kind of one of the main ones, if not the main one. Because at the end of the day, don't get data in, right? Or get less data in, or maybe filtered data in some sort of way that it's processing less, and then you won't have to then do all of the rest. So like the risk will be like dramatically reduced, right? So I do feel minimization is kind of at the core of this. But while it's a very powerful and important one, right, in terms of even ranking, like in my mind, I think it's also very misunderstood. And I think it depends on what you want to do. And then the first thing about AI is that AI does require a lot of data, right? It is kind of how it's created. That's how LLMs, like Gen AI, are created. And so because it does require, the principle isn't use no data or use only kind of that amount of data. The principle is only use the data that's relevant and that's proportionate for what you want to do. And so it depends on the activity, right? And sometimes I feel like that kind of gets lost. And I think for me, when you're creating OpenAI, but like other frontier labs, right? I think the idea is, and we had that discussion at a hackathon, we want the models to learn about the world, not about you. And that's kind of the principle, right? That's not what the tool is made for. And so because that's the case, then like, okay, so how much data do I need then given that premise in practice? Then you think about filtration, and you were here at the hackathon, and we talked about privacy filter, which is something I'm very proud of in practice. We worked, we were using other tools, but we created our own. We're going to publish on it next year, and we're going to make it open source. We said at a couple of conferences this year already, and having that privacy filter where you take all of that data in, but then you mask a bunch of information that do not make sense to you. So you minimize a lot the data that is actually being used, to train the model. So the model will not learn from that information.
And again, not a new concept.
It's not a new concept, but you're applying a lot of intelligence to it, and that's what's interesting.
Idriss, I want to switch gears just a little bit because obviously you have built a lot of great relationships within OpenAI with researchers, engineers, product teams. What do the next generation of CPOs need to consider when it comes to building relationships that are above and beyond legal? And I'd love to know what you have done to nurture and build relationships with, again, folks like researchers who are kind of in one lane and not necessarily thinking about maybe legal implications. And that's where you come in. But I'd love to know about your relationship building.
Yeah, the lane concept is an interesting one because I think that's exactly what it is. The days where privacy professionals, let's say lawyers, right, were doing their thing on their side, or please do a policy for XYZ issue, a new product that we're creating, or we need at the time I used to declarations to the regulator in France, for instance, many, many years ago, is over, right? You shouldn't stay in your lane. Privacy is absolutely a company-wide issue, and privacy professionals, because of who they are and they need to understand the tech, but they also need to translate legal requirements onto the tech. They've always been in my mind, that's at least what I've always done, right? You're a translator and you're sort of a coalition builder, right?
I love that.
And so you're there to take everyone in and say, okay, so everyone from product, from engineering, from research, it is a discussion to be had because everything has kind of compromises, right? In terms of data value, in terms of rights, in terms of, all of these things.
I love this idea of coalition building. That's the first time I've heard of it, although I have heard of us as being the kind of the central figurehead in companies to bring people together. Privacy folks have traditionally done that, so...
Yeah, I think that's the case. Privacy folks have definitely been at the center because, again, they've had to deal with the legal aspects of things and the compliance, but also then the product, and they're very much at the center of this. But I think it's one thing to be a coordinator. I think people should be mindful of not wanting to own everything. That's my kind of personal perspective. I think if you want to bring people in, one thing that I always do and what I ask my team to do is make people accountable, make them co-owners of what you're doing. If you take your product people in, if you take your engineers, your researchers in, and you're making that a project that they also own, right? They will want to do the right thing. They will feel accountable and responsible for this. They want this to work rather than being just your project that you're trying to kind of shove onto them in practice.
I wanted to switch gears a little bit and get some advice for young privacy professionals in the field. You've obviously had an illustrious career so far. What's the one piece of advice you'd give to young privacy pros that are trying to break into privacy?
So I think one thing that I always talk about, even with my team when we're recruiting, is we want smart people. We don't really want the people who know the most. Like that's easy, right? I think in privacy. I think you still want people. I think that's becoming a little bit untrue with time because there's just so much more regulations happening, like both in privacy and in AI. Privacy people are starting to become AI people. So there's definitely more regulation. So it is true that like, the amount of more regulation that people need to know is getting bigger, but still, I think on balance, it's still not a lot to learn. I used to say, maybe I even told you this many years ago, I used to say that if I were to give someone, 500 pages to read across kind of 2 days or whatever, they would know 75% of what I know. And I think it's not tax law. It's not, it's not like a big corpus of things you need to know. And so I think that's still relatively true. I think regulation is the easiest piece, I think, to know. What you want to have is really people who are smart and who can understand how to apply principles, to new technology, to be to be curious about technology, to try to use this. All of that, regardless of the industry you will be working in. Technology will have a massive impact on this, and you want to be able to understand it and be curious enough to then try to apply it without thinking that you will find the answer in a manual.
That's great advice for privacy pros, especially trying to break into working at companies like OpenAI. And Idriss, I have one last question for you. Again, you're at the forefront of an incredible technology that's impacting the whole world. I was wondering what makes you hopeful that AI is going in the right direction?
If you look at the hackathon we did yesterday, I think that's a good representation of what makes me hopeful. It's not the hackathon itself. I mean, I guess part of it is the opportunities. I do strongly, absolutely believe that AI will enhance privacy, and that's really make me hopeful. The second thing about hackathon is it's bringing people in. I do also I know that, discussions and relations and engagement is not always easy on a day-to-day basis between companies, between regulators, between civil society. That's normal. Like everyone has their perspective on things. But I do believe that it takes a village for us all, as a society to look at this new technology, look at what it can bring and try to think through what is the best way for us to accommodate, to enable that technology in a way that makes sense and that will enhance, people's rights, including privacy, rather than, it's just giving people more agency rather than removing agency,
right.
For instance. So that's really what gives me hope is people's engagement, on all of these things.
Right.
God knows that people are super interested in this, and that's great because it will take everyone's kind of brain's power and genuine engagement for us all to get there.
And I think you and the team are doing a fantastic job ensuring consumer privacy at OpenAI, especially when things are changing day to day.
We're working a lot on everything. We're not going to get everything right from the beginning. We're doing our best. Whenever we're seeing signals that things are not working, we will change. That's what we do. But yes, I'm very proud of, what everyone is doing.
Idriss, thank you so much for your time today. Shall we go grab a Guinness?
Absolutely, we should. We have to. We have to.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for watching this episode of Transcend Field Trips. I'm Ron De Jesus. See you out in the field.